Okay, so far no spun. Oh wow, this bearing's actually in worse shape than the other one was. Look at this. Look at this bearing, you guys. It's not even the right shape anymore. Look at that. It's all flared out on the sides. You see this? You see how it's all flared out on the sides? That thing was beating against the crankshaft, man. Something fierce. So hey everybody, what's up, man? We're still on the Datsun. It's in here. I figured why not shoot another video before we roll it back out again. So I've done a little work off camera, as you can see. Got the back of the cab completely done. I mean, we're talking it is sealed up and ready to go. But hey, not to worry, I didn't cheat you guys out of anything. We've got tons of welding to do on this, and I figured I would bring you guys along on welding up the sides. Yeah, you can see along the sides, it's not attached yet. So we've got a lot of trimming to do, a lot of pieces to splice in. Obviously, this has to be attached to this, just like we did on the back. You can see over here on the driver's side, I've already trimmed up my section, and we worked the paint back a little bit so that we can get some nice clean welds. I've got to relocate this box. You can see here, this actually bolts to the floor right there. I'm going to relocate it over there to the drive shaft tunnel, and then we'll build a console over it. You'll never know it's there. And this is going to free up some space for our seat. Just a simple little ground relocation is all it's going to take for that, and it could go right over here. Hell, the wiring harness has enough slack. I could probably put it just right all the way to the back of the cab. Simple enough. So we're going to take the path of least resistance and just use an existing bolt hole that is already there. Yeah, this thing won't fire up if all the grounds and everything ain't hooked up. I've got one more box we'll have to relocate right here. Yeah, this one over underneath the passenger seat, it'll go over there as well. I think there's plenty of room for all of that. And then, like I said, a console will cover it all up. It'll make us a nice little armrest and everything. So this is all coming together. Oh, we've been burning up some wire, man. Look at that. Let's get this one on here. We'll feed it through the little thing here. You got to be really careful. Don't let your wire unravel on you, because it will want to. Get it to go through there. All right, now we can feed it through here. We'll speed it up so it doesn't take all day. Get it till it comes out the tip. Very simple little procedure there. Doesn't get much easier than that. And there it is. Made me a nice little pattern out of an old cardboard box, just like we did on the back of the cab. Now I'm going to cut this out, and we're going to trim it up, and we're going to make it fit perfectly into that little piece that we need on that floor. We're going to close that gap up. Yeah, I think I can just break it off right now. We'll switch over to the flapper wheel. I got two different grinders set up, one to cut and one to go back and dress up the edges. You can kind of see the edges are kind of jaggedy. Be careful, don't rub your fingers on that stuff. Well, there's our piece fitting in. Fits in really nice. Now I've still got to come through and weld from this side. So give me a few minutes and I'll get this finished up, and then we'll close in that piece. Don't forget to cool your welds down every once in a while. You don't want to warp everything up. We'll run over them with the grinder, my little flapper disc. I love these things. They dress up the welds really nice. They take them down real quick. And I'll leave a little bit of the weld behind for strength. We don't have to do anything cosmetic here. We're not doing body work. This is all going to get a lot of bed liner spray or something inside of here. So if there's a little bit of the weld left, it'll be fine. You won't even see it. So that's what we're left with. You guys see what I mean about how you could kind of leave some of the weld behind. It's fine. This thing is going to get hosed down with bed liner spray most likely all on this floor. That's going to help with sound deadening, heat, things like that. And it's going to drown all of these welds. You will not see any of them. Save us a little bit of money on all those grinding discs. Those flapper discs are about 10 bucks a piece. I love them. They do great, but they are pricey. So we've got another piece that's got to go in to finish up this side. You can see it's going to go right to there, and then that's where we'll start going up the firewall. So here's our next piece. Drilled a couple of holes for some plug welds. If you'll notice right here, this is actually our body mount sticking out, right? And so this piece is going to go right on top of it, and then we'll plug weld right here to these tabs, which is what it had from the factory, and then we'll finish weld down the seam here. But anyway, that's how that's going to work, just like that. We're going to take a little weld through primer. Since I'm welding on top of something here, I'm going to dust a little bit of that in there. We'll let that dry for a few minutes, then we'll slap that right on top of there and weld it in. Sometimes I like to take my hammer and just kind of push it down right across both pieces, you know, so that it sits nice and flush. Works pretty good. Oh, and hey, in case any of you were wondering what the weld through primer was, this is just some stuff I pick up down at the O'Reilly's. You could get it pretty much anywhere. It's something you're going to want to put between two panels. Anytime a panel goes on top of another one, you need kind of something in between them, and that's what they recommend. You can see there, that's going to be our plug weld. We already welded the other one. So that's supposed to offer some kind of protection in between the two panels is all. Let's go ahead and weld up our other plug weld. To get it. Okay, check it out, man. We're all the way across the back and now down the driver's side. We've got it welded up solid and even attached to our cab mount, and we're attached over here on the rocker panel as well. So went ahead and sprayed a little bit of sealer to kind of cover our work up as we go. We don't want this stuff rusting up on us, and a lot of times I have to take these things, roll them outside to bring another project in, and well, you know, you don't want to leave all that bare metal out there. Yeah, you see there, just kind of sealing it up as we go. So speaking of having to bring projects in and out all the time, this one's not running right now, and it's kind of a pain pushing it in and out. I'm just tired of it. So I thought we'd crawl underneath it, pull the pan off, see if we could find out which one of those rods is knocking and maybe replace it. I don't think there's anything wrong with the crank. I caught it immediately, I've shut it down, and I haven't been running it. So the crank ought to be fine. We got to get in here and dig out some of our bolts. This cross member actually comes off. It just bolts right in. We learned this messing with my daughter's truck. She has herself a 94 Nissan hardbody that we've been restoring over on her channel. And well, we've been round and round with that thing a few times, so we ought to be pretty well trained on how to get this off of here. That'll make it a little easier to get the bolts. So yeah, man, this cross member comes right off. We'll have to pull a dust shield off of the transmission, and then we could take all the bolts out of the oil pan itself, and it'll come right off of here. And that's going to help us get our sockets on there. That'll be nice. So yeah, if you guys missed it, go over to Me, Myself, and Darlene. That's my daughter's channel, and we've been doing a lot of work to her Nissan over there. And man, we've learned a ton about these things messing with that old truck. Let's see if this thing's gonna give us any trouble coming out of here. So far, so good. Come on out of there, we go. Let's see. Alright, so far nothing. Oh wow, that was actually kind of coming out finger loose. That's awesome. Let's try this one out. Let's go on the outside one. There we go. That bolt's just about to come all the way out of the hole. That's pretty nice when that happens. Ain't even had to break the hammer out or nothing. Now this one we'll have to flip our impact around on the other side because we got the oil pan that sticks down in the way right there, just barely. It actually puts you an extension on there and it probably come right out of there no problem. So yeah, now with all the bolts loose, it's starting to come apart nice. Look at that, all the bolts coming out. Nothing got hung up in the hole. Man, if this comes out without even using a hammer, I'll be amazed. Yeah, we might have to grab the hammer. Hang on. And we could probably just tap on it with this brake over. Yeah, like, simple. Nice, you gotta like that. Didn't even fight us. I'm gonna mark it with a D so I can actually put this back in on the driver's side. Since it came out like this, I want to put it back in exactly the way it came out. It'll fit a lot nicer when it comes to lining your bolt holes up. That ought to help us keep from having to pound them in with a hammer. You guys know, you've all been there. Still trying to carve my way into this thing. I can't even tell what size of the bolts are. They got so much damn grease on them. But I will say this, there's no rust under here. Maybe it's because of all of this, I don't know. But it is a rust-free truck up underneath here. Pretty good shape. That's crazy. Yeah, it's these two dust shield bolts right here that tend to get in the way when you go to drop the pan, because I mean you need every bit of room you can to get that pan down out of there, and they always hang up right here. That's been my experience so far, so I'm going to go ahead and get them out of the way now instead of forgetting like I normally do and then having to deal with it while getting the pan off. That's not as fun. Pretty easy though, look at that. This one I guess has a through bolt with a nut on the end of it, and then the other one was just a bolt going into the transmission, actually threaded into the transmission I should say. The rest of it is just 10mm bolts all the way around this thing, and they're easy to get to. There's nothing obstructing you being able to get those bolts out, so pretty simple. Let's go ahead and drain the oil out of it. Probably be a smart move before we go yanking the pan off, right? Oh, sorry about that. I'm getting loud, huh? Definitely time for an oil change, that's for sure. That ought to be good enough. Screw that back in so we don't lose it. Oh, we'd start up here in the front to get all of these bolts out. Show you guys just how easy this is. I mean, no obstructions. Look at this. All the way down the side. So simple. We'll come up here and let me move my light. Go down this side now. Now this side you may have to switch up to a 1/4 inch socket, you know, 1/4 inch setup, something a little bit smaller, but maybe not. Looks like I'm actually gonna be able to get this right up in here. Oh yeah, nice. I thought I was gonna have to switch to something smaller, using my 3/8 drive right now, and I was convinced I was gonna have to go to 1/4 inch. Look at this. It's like no matter what, you can get around it. That was the slave cylinder right there. Totally get around it, no problem at all. Look at this, we haven't had to switch up tools or nothing. That's it. That's how easy that was, y'all. All the way around this thing. So I know some of you thinking like, well, what's the big deal about that? Well, it's a little bitty truck, and normally they cram everything into such a little tight area that things kind of are hard to get to, and that's just not really the case with this truck. No matter what I've done with this thing, I've pulled the motor out and everything on that other one, my daughter's truck, and it was so easy. It was really easy. Nothing to it but to do it. Ooh, I love that hollow sound. That means it's coming loose. Yeah, just like that. Pretty easy. So I'm going to show y'all. This should come just right out of here. No problem at all. See if we could do it without tearing up the gasket too bad. There it is. Yeah, look at it trying to fall out of there all on its own. Yeah, simple. Simple. Try not to get it all in your whiskers. We'll dig around in the pan, see if we find any hidden prizes. You guys remember digging around in the box of cereal? See if you find anything. Look what I already know exactly what this is. Look at this. This came off the fuel injector. It's one of the little pins that hold the injector on. They must have dropped it down in the motor, and it worked its way all the way down into the pan. Look at that. That came from the top of the motor, you guys. That held the injector in. We just dug that out of the pan. That's not cool. That's not cool. I don't feel anything else down in there. Alright, so I guess that's it. Now in these particular motors, sometimes you'll dig around down in that pan and you'll actually find pieces of the timing chain guides down in the pan because these are notorious for breaking. I didn't feel any down in there, so I'm assuming it's still intact. You can usually look up in the bottom of the motor and see if those guides are still there. I'm having a hard time telling. I can see that one over on this side. I don't know if y'all can see it on camera, but I can see that the guide is still intact over on the driver's side of the motor. And it appears that we do have one on the passenger side. We may pull the valve cover off just to be sure. Let's get in here. Pull the motor. Let's turn the motor over by hand. Oh man, I got so much stuff falling down on my face. We haven't turned this motor over at all in like 2 years, I think it's been. So every time I try to turn this over a little bit, I get all kinds of crap falling down on my face. But I wanted to go through here and kind of see if I can't wiggle around on these rod journals. I'm not even going to bother with pulling the spark plugs out or anything. You can hear the compression going. I'm not feeling anything wiggling around yet. Let's see. The only one I'm feeling anything, you hear that? That's number 4, the one all the way at the back. Yeah, that one there. None of the other ones will do that. I've been trying to wiggle them around in every different position of the motor and nothing, they don't do anything, but this one does. So I don't know, let's pull that cap off and see what happens. We'll start by getting our pickup tube out of the way. This thing sits right directly in the way of getting that rod cap off. Let's see. Guys, bear with me for a minute. Sometimes you got to switch up. We got 2 different sizes holding this thing on. We got a 12 and a 10. And that comes right off of there. We'll clean all that up before we put it back on. And then let's see, where'd my other tool go? Now we could crack this rod cap loose. See if we can't get a look at this bearing. I'm really curious what this thing looks like. Just about to come off of here. Always pay attention which way these things come off so that you can put them back on exactly the way they came off. Look at this. It's got a Nissan emblem. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but it is over on the passenger side. So we'll have to remember that when we go to put it back on. Didn't come. Let's see. Nope, no bearing. The bearing's still on the crank. Let's slide this up out of the way. There we go. That's out of the way now. And here is our bearing, and thank goodness it's not stuck on or anything. That's always a plus. I'll keep an eye on what came out of the cap and what came out of the rod itself. And we'll have a look at it. Yeah, it's pretty thin. Yeah, you can see here, it's worn all the way down. And it seems to be kind of discolored even. So, see this one here? This was really bad. Y'all see that one? Now luckily nothing was seized to the crankshaft. I didn't figure it was. Like I mentioned before, as soon as it started knocking, I shut it off and I have not started it back up. I get really, really paranoid about stuff like that because I don't want to take something that's fixable, rebuildable, and then turn around and have to include a bunch of machine work, you know what I mean? That stuff gets really expensive, but you can see that crank is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I can't even believe it's knocking, to be honest. I mean, that bearing didn't seem to be all that bad, you know? That's all right. We're going to throw us a new bearing in there. That ought to fix us right up. Don't forget to put the one on the rod itself. That would be, you'd really be knocking then, huh? So yeah, we'll get that on there and then push it back up where it goes. Crank this motor on back around. Okay. Now we can bring our piston back down, make contact with that crank. There we go, like that. Again, don't forget to oil your new bearings, you know. And remember, we're paying attention to what side that little emblem. There's a little emblem right there. We said it went on the passenger side. Slide that right back up on there. Put the bolts, or the nuts back on actually, and then we'll torque them. And I'm going to have to go back to my book and find my torque specs because I done forgot. Come over here to our trusty truck Bible. Check it out. We got everything we need in here. You can't go wrong with this thing. Right here we got main bearings and connecting rod bearings. That's for the KA24E engine, which is what we're working on, 1990 and on. You can see here it says 2 steps. First step is going to be 10 to 12 pounds. And then we'll go on to the second step, bringing it on up to, it looks like 60 to 65 degrees from that 10 to 12 pounds, which is about 28 to 33 foot-pounds, it says. So let's go do it. So we'll go to step 1. Get these up to about 12 pounds or so. There we go. It don't take much to get 12 pounds. Now we're going to bump it up to, it said 28 to 33. Why don't we go just an even 30? Make it easy. Let's see. Come on up here to 30. That ought to be good right there. Okay. Okay, so after you torque it, you want to make sure the engine still turns. Oh yeah, it turns fine. So nothing's binding up. Spin it back around here. Let's see if it took the noise away. All right, so yeah, that is not like it was a minute ago when it was all crazy loose. I mean, you could make the knocking sound just by doing it by hand. Just out of curiosity, I'm gonna go ahead and bring it on around and let's check the next set of bearings just for the hell of it. I should have pulled the spark plugs out. I was being lazy and now I'm paying for it. Pop these off and see what this looks like now. Hopefully they're in better shape than those last ones were. Those were not doing too well. bearing stayed on the crank just like the other one did. Okay, so far no spun. Oh wow, this bearing's actually in worse shape than the other one was. Wow, that's actually quite a bit worse. Alright, so that's the one that goes in the cap. Let's get the one off that goes on the rod itself and look at it. Yeah, these are worn way down. That thing is rough too. Well, luckily, the crank feels good on this one too, so the journals are fine so far. So yeah, I wanted you guys to see this. Look how bad that is. It's actually got a groove worn out into it even. The other part is they won't even stay inside the caps. I mean, look at this. Like there's nothing to, it will not clip down inside of the caps. You know how they normally kind of have a snug fit to it. It just falls right out. So in with some new ones. It's okay, new ones going in right now. So I'm gonna fix our problem. Give us many more miles to come. And there we go. So I was convinced number 4 was the culprit, but it turns out it's number 1. Look at this. Look at this bearing, you guys. It's not even the right shape anymore. Look at that. It's all flared out on the sides. You see this? You see how it's all flared out on the sides? That thing was beating against the crankshaft, man. Something fierce. They're supposed to be skinny like this. You can see. And look how wide that bearing is compared to that one. So, yeah, the crankshaft feels fine, believe it or not. At the very most, might need a little bit of emery cloth ran around it, and that is it, and then we can throw it back together with our new bearings. I mean, that's all this old boy's going to do to it. It ought to be fine, though. So here's the last one. Number 1. Kind of went backwards. Went 4 to 1. We started from the back, worked our way forward. Turned out to be the very last one. Okay, now we'll take and we'll spin the motor. Make sure nothing's seizing up on us. And man, she is doing really, really nice. So, all that's left now is to clean up that oil pan. And probably have to put a gasket in it. I mean, this one's bad. So, oh yeah, we're going to put our pickup tube. I'm going to clean it all out first with the pan, and then we'll put it all back together, fill it up with some fresh oil, see what we come up with. Let's take a second to clean up our oil pan. Now, I took it to the car wash last night, cleaned all the inside of it out. And now I just need to clean off the old sealant and whatever the car wash missed. It's got some stuff that's like baked on here. Boy, that's looking factory right there. Just like she was born. Look at that. Nice. I love the semi-gloss when it comes to engines, you know, engine parts. It just has an original look to it most of the time. Perfect. Don't forget to scrape the gasket off the bottom of the motor. Won't do much sealing with that old thing on there. So I'll get this all cleaned up, and when I'm done, I'm going to go back and wipe this mating surface off with some acetone, you know, all of that, and that kind of helps your sealer to stick if you're using gasket sealer, which I think I'm going to put a little on here. There's just something so satisfying about scraping the crud off these old trucks and cars. I think it's probably my favorite part. That's turning out pretty nice. Look at that, getting nice and clean. I usually will wipe across here a few times until I could pull my rag loose and it actually be kind of clean. You see it starts out super dirty, as you could imagine, and then we'll just keep doing this until it cleans up, and that's going to make my gasket sealer stick really nice, like I mentioned earlier. Well, we definitely wouldn't want to forget this guy. Could you imagine? Forget the pickup tube. What a disaster. I'll get this tightened up, and then we will get to putting that pan on. Okay, time for the fun part. Let's see if we can get this up in here without messing up our gasket sealer. That's the hardest part. Okay, we are officially on. Get a couple of bolts started here. Gonna go over toward the middle on each side, somewhere thereabouts. I'll hold it up for us. And tightening these up, I like to go by hand. I don't like to use any kind of power tools. Get a better feel for it this way, I think, because you don't want to over tighten these. And then of course, I know most of you guys know to always kind of start in the middle and work your way out and just go evenly back and forth down both sides so you get this thing worked up on there. If you over tighten it, you can squish your gasket and actually damage it and cause a leak, even though you think tightening it more would make it better, right? And well, it not necessarily. Can actually mess some things up. So I'll keep doing this back and forth, one side of the pan to the other, from the middle out, and then I will check back with you guys in just a minute. We'll get some oil dumped in this thing, see if we did it any good. Don't want to forget my dust shield bolts. They'll wedge right up in behind here, and there's just enough room to get them in. Well, you know we're getting close now. We got the oil going in. Ain't nothing left but to hook up a battery. Cross our fingers. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. It's gonna need some gas too. Installing the battery now, and I don't have a good place to put this thing at the moment. We're gonna have to build us a battery tray, I guess, but I'll get this thing hooked up and maybe bungee cord it or something into place. Well, you know it's getting deep when you're ratchet strapping your battery in. That's a full-blown custom now. Alright, so we're all juiced up. I got the battery charger going. Battery was a little bit weak. I hooked that up. No smoke, no sizzling, so we're doing good so far. I think what I'm going to do is unhook the coil wire. We're going to crank this for a little bit, build up some oil pressure before we just kick it right off. Well, we're having a bit of an issue. I've got power. Everything's working, everything's coming on. No crank and no fuel pump. You know, the two main things we're gonna need right now? Yeah, no crank, no fuel pump, damn it. I've gone through, checked all the fuses. They seem to be good. I don't know if we got a relay. I don't know if there's a ground unhooked somewhere. I don't think there's any grounds unhooked anywhere. It ran when I parked it out there, and I haven't messed with it since, so I haven't come along and unhooked anything. I've been all up underneath it, tracing wiring harnesses. We've been testing wires with a test light and a multimeter. There's no power back here to the fuel pump at all. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with it just yet. This is our main ground wire. I've already brightened it up a little bit with my Scotch Brite, got a good connection going on there. I've even come around and fixed up some of my grounds that are down in here. You can see we've got some grounds that are all tied together right there. And we've already gone through, straightened all of that out. Battery cables, everything are clean. I know sometimes this little area here can be an issue, so maybe we'll get in there and check some of that. But everything's tight, everything's working, everything's clean. I don't understand what's going on just yet. So I hate to leave you guys hanging, but I got to get y'all a video out. I left you hanging too long already, and I guess we'll save all the troubleshooting for the next one. How about that? Starting to look like we're going to have to catch up on some light reading. So anyway, I'll get started on all that, and then when we come back, hopefully we'll be figuring this thing out. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. I'll see y'all next time.